Hey everybody, welcome in to the Point. We're doing well on this Friday. Pardon me, it's a Friday, and we have lots to dive into today. We're going to preview UFC 301 later on in the show, which will taking place tomorrow night in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, featuring the return of the King of Rio, Jose Aldo. So that's coming up later on in the show. We're going to talk about the Knicks 76 series, which was phenomenal, great theater. Ended last night in Philadelphia. But we got to start the show with the breaking news. I mean, everybody's talking about this today. Top story: Sports Center in the States, in Canada. Odell Beckham Jr. signs a 1-year deal with the Miami Dolphins. I'm kidding. That is news. It might be the leading news story in the United States because football is king. But up here in the Great White North, the lead story today, top of the bill. Everybody's excited, I think. The Toronto Maple Leafs forced a Game 7 with the Boston Bruins last night following a 2-1 victory, just like they did in Game 5. This is the fourth straight time these teams have met up. They've all gone to Game 7s. Boston has won them all, as we all know. But really, I think you can look at the Maple Leafs over the last couple games without their best player dealing with whatever he's dealing with. I'm not going to make any more jokes about it, although I could, because it's easy to make a joke because I see players playing with injuries, but I won't do it because I'll be nice for today. But the Maple Leafs played a style, and quite honestly, they've dominated the last two games, but they've only won by one goal in each of them. And they come down the wire and they feel tight, but I can honestly say this. I never thought the Maple Leafs were going to lose last night. Boston had two offensive zone faceoffs in the last 5 minutes following a pair of bad icings by the Maple Leafs. And I never felt that Boston, even if Boston won the draw, that they're going to score a goal. I didn't feel it was close. I didn't feel they had the pressure. Joseph Wall is kind of a lightning rod turning point for the series for the Maple Leafs. And I think it's fair to put him in that category. To me, the bigger turning point is the effort level of the team. He's making saves, but Trent Frederick scored a goal in Game 5 that you should save. It's a shot that shouldn't go in. It did go in. So he let in a bad goal, just like Ilya Samsonov did in Games 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4. Won every game that you go, okay, that just can't go in. But other than Game 2, parts of Game 3, the Maple Leafs didn't play 60 minutes where they had control, where they controlled the pace. The game was going their way. Not to mention, going back years, because there's teams you can say, well, this team lost this year. Well, there's different iterations. The Maple Leafs, it's been the same because you have Marner, Matthews. It's the same clash of clans. It's the same guys that wheel out on the ice. I haven't seen a Maple Leafs team block shots like this one does. I haven't seen a Maple Leafs team dominate the boards like this team has the past couple nights. Play with snarl. Embrace your opponent. What I mean by that is Brad Marchand was called for a penalty last night. Do I think that was a penalty? No, although I think the officials were fantastic last night. But should Brad Marchand have been called for a penalty there? No. But Bertuzzi embraced the opponent, embraced who was coming at him, Brad Marchand, and gave it a little sell. If anything, that's a coincidental minor penalty because Bertuzzi interfered with Marchand, but Bertuzzi falls down. Marchand looks like he's dragging him to the ground, and he got the call. Maple Leafs don't score on the power play because the Maple Leafs power play is a complete eyesore, but that's a whole other story. But I think you're seeing them say, you know what? You want to play that game? You're the physical team. You win the board battles. Yes, we're more skilled. The Maple Leafs are playing that game with the Boston Bruins, and they're winning at their own game. Matthew Nyes, Tyler Bertuzzi, to me, have been difference makers in this series. Just their ability to win, to go in there, get the puck, keep it cycling, not allowing Boston to get any momentum. Because 2 straight games, the Boston Bruins did not come ready to play. They were not prepared. They went over 15 minutes of game time without registering a shot on goal. They had 2 shots after the first period. They had no momentum. They had no juice. They looked like they were stuck in mud. Back-to-back games. And as I said this yesterday, 2 things can be true. Maple Leafs play great, Bruins also stink. But what the difference is the Bruins have a bad start, and they don't have legs, and the Maple Leafs kill them for 20 minutes. Oftentimes, and this is every team, if you play sports, you have a great start, and you let off the gas a little bit, and you let your opponent back into it, and they establish their game, and then the game can go anywhere. It's haywire. What the Maple Leafs have been doing, Boston sucks out of the gates, and Toronto's great. But what Toronto doesn't do is they don't let off the gas. They keep applying the pressure. They keep playing the way they did in the first period, the way they do in the third period, which is rare for this group, but they're doing it. And that's why last night I never thought they were going to lose. And I don't care if they win or lose. I'm not a Leafs fan. I could care less. But I'm watching the game going, okay. And I don't have the sound on. I don't watch the games with sound. I have my mother texting me that the crowd's great, and I'm like, fantastic. Once a year is nice for the fans to show up and make some noise in there. But they played in Boston where they had no momentum, no crowd. Well, crowd was probably louder than Toronto, but again, we'll throw that away. They have nobody boosting their spirit at the TD Garden. They played that way in the Garden. They played that way at the Scotiabank Arena, Center, whatever it is. They, for 60 minutes, and I thought they were better last night than they were in Game 5. And they were good in Game 5, but that game went to overtime, and it could have went, hits a skate, could go either way. But William Nylander scores an insurance goal, but I'm like, okay, it's fine. Gonna win the game anyway. It was a matter of time for me. But Matthew Nyes, Bertuzzi, they might not be on the scoreboard every game. They might, Nyes scores an overtime winner, and he scored 3 overtime winners in college hockey, so he has that clutch ability in his game. He just finds a way to score big goals. But it's about establishing the momentum. It's about establishing the way you're going to play, continuing it throughout the game. And while this style has not allowed them to score goals, because they've scored 4 goals in the last 2 games, it's good enough to win. It's good enough to play defensively. And then you have Joseph Wall behind you, who's been rock solid. He's allowed 2 goals in 7 periods, but last night's with 0.1 seconds left. It's a bit of a misnomer. It's not, who cares about that goal. Let's say 1 goal in 7 periods. You're not going to get better goaltending than that. He doesn't look. It's funny because him and Swayman present themselves similarly to me. See Swayman laughing in his mask with the refs. He looks calm, cool, and collected. If you look at the goals last night, Nylander shoots the puck, hits off Charlie McAvoy, goes in the back. He had no chance on that play. Nylander scores on a breakaway. William Nylander is one of the most creative players in the league, period. Nylander's going to score on a lot of guys on a breakaway. It's going to be ugly goals. You're going to have to come up with a play. But I look at those two guys. I think Joel Edmondson, I've said this, I think he's had a great series. He's willing to do whatever it takes to win. Won a Stanley Cup in St. Louis. Made a Stanley Cup final with the Maple Leafs rival, the Montreal Canadiens. He just has that game about him. William Nylander. Shitty game 4, like the whole team. Didn't show up to the rink. Game 5, I thought he was okay. Had his legs a little bit towards the end of that game. Started to look like his old self. Last night, that was William Nylander. Carried the puck into the offensive zone. Created plays. Scored both goals. And he was the driving force of their offense last night. He's a creative player. He's as creative as it gets in the National Hockey League. And he's a lightning rod. He misses games to start the series. Migraines, we don't know what it is. And he's been loved, hated, loved during his different times as a member of the Toronto Maple Leafs. But he's always been a good playoff performer. He always seems to find a way to score a big goal or two. Last night, I don't think he cares what people think about him, which I respect. I think that's one of the best qualities a person can have. And maybe that's a narcissistic point of view for me because that's how I live my life. But he plays the game. And at times it can look like he doesn't care, and at times, but I do think he loves the game of hockey. And he wants to win, and it's hard. But he was a gamer last night. He found a way to get on the board. He found a way to make an impact. And he deserves a lot of credit for being that guy last night. But overall, I think it's one of the better playoff games the Maple Leafs have played in a while. Just top to bottom as a team. They're trying to find offense. Noah Gregor goes in the lineup for Ryan Reeves. Didn't really help. But the fourth line was not a liability last night. I understand the thought process. You can't score goals. You're trying to make your lines as creative, as productive as they possibly can be. For Boston, a team not coming out ready to play is obviously on the players, because when you're playing, it's on you to be ready. It's on you to have energy, to be excited, however you want to phrase it. But it's also on the coach. It's also on the coach having your team desperate enough to go out there and compete and win the game. And in back-to-back games, the Boston Bruins have come out lifeless, have come out without a purpose, and the Maple Leafs have run them off the ice. And Jimmy Montgomery deserves some criticism for the way his teams have started. He can go in the media and say they were better than us, but why can't Boston have the energy, have the legs like they did in Game 4, like they did in Game 3? It's one thing to lose 2 games in a row. Vegas has lost 3 games in a row in their series against the Dallas Stars. But it's a whole other thing to be a no-show in the first 35 minutes of Games 5 and Game 6. Boston was horrible in the first period of Game 5. They were worse in the first period last night. And they did not get a shot on goal on Joseph Woll until the 8 minutes remaining in the second period. How that happens, I don't know. They make lineup changes. Danton Heinen's injured. He can't play. So you see Beecher come back in. I thought Beecher was their best forward last night of any player. Marchand, kind of invisible. Pasternak, I'm going to get to him. Coyle didn't have a great game. Geeky, invisible. They didn't have many forwards who were really productive, who were all over the ice. So, I noticed John Beecher. He had the puck. He created scoring chances. He's a faster body in their bottom six, and they have some slow guys down there. And why he didn't play Game 5, I don't know. He's a lock to play Game 7. But whenever Beecher's on the ice with a combination of players, they seem to have the best offensive zone time. The defense had better scoring opportunities last night for Boston than their forwards. Brandon Carlo had a couple good looks late in that game. But the best players aren't ready to play. And not to mention Marchand, Pasternak, both showing frustrations. Breaking sticks, Marchand shoving a linesman last night trying to get into the bench. Takes a penalty on Bertuzzi. Whether it was a penalty or not, it's irrelevant. He took the penalty. If you missed the post-game media, Jim Montgomery addressed David Pasternak, and he called him out. He said, Pasta needs to do more. We need more from him. He's not wrong. David Pasternak's one of the best players in the world, and in the regular season, he's one of the most consistent players. In this series, Toronto's done a very good job of eliminating him. He's got 4 points in 6 games, and on the surface, that's not horrible. But also, he's taken 2 minor penalties, took a double minor for high sticking last night. And he's been productive on the power play. But David Pasternak can take over a game, just like William Nylander did last night for Toronto. And he hasn't. Hasn't been that productive force that we're accustomed to seeing. If I'm Jim Montgomery, and there's a narrative for Game 7, and I'm going to tell you what it is here in a second, but going into Saturday night, Marchand and Pasternak are playing together for the entire 60 minutes. If you win the game, you want to go back to something different for round 2, you do that. But I am going down with my best players playing together. On the power play, Marchand and Pasternak are together. They're not on separate units. And it hurts the team, no question. Because you go Pasternak, Marchand, and I would do Coyle. That's your top line. Geeky, DeBrusk. I would go Trent Frederick personally over Zaka. Zaka to me has just kind of been an invisible player during this series. Zaka, even Beecher, I would consider above Zaka at this point. You can put Zaka on the wing for a couple shifts if you think he's got something, but he's been quiet. Beecher, Boquist, and this where JVR potentially. It gets limited for Boston. And when you put them together, it hurts your team. But you need guys like Morgan Geeky hoping they can step up. Jake DeBrusk, who's been a good playoff performer, good in Game 7s, in particular against the Maple Leafs. He can step up. Get some offense from your back end. Get a goal from them. Shot from the point, find its way into the back of the net. But I'm playing Pasternak and Marchand play fantastic together. They've done it for a long time. They know how to play with one another. And I'm going down with that ship. To me, it's different than putting... Marchand and Pasternak are different players than, say, Matthews and Marner, where I don't view them playing together as a benefit because you need balance throughout. These two guys can do so much on a line. They have the connection with one another, and they can do damage. But if I'm Jimmy Montgomery, I'm doing that going in to Saturday night. But for Pasternak, the Leafs done a great job because they double him when he gets the puck. They always have a defender up tight on him, so he doesn't have a whole lot of room to make a play with the puck before somebody's got a stick in there and knocked it away, and then he's frustrated, and the puck's down the ice. If I'm him, I go back to a simplistic approach. I'm going into corners, I'm throwing checks early, and I'm trying to cause havoc so that the Maple Leafs game plan defensively is adjusted. Not to mention, here's another thing. Great players have their most success when chaos erupts, because then your defensive system is thrown out of whack. If a defensive pair, if a line is out there for a long shift, they are tired. They want to get to the bench. They start to cheat. They're hoping that a line mate can do them a favor and get the puck out of the down the ice. If it doesn't happen, and oftentimes an offensive player who has better legs, who isn't defending, can find open ice and make something happen. And David Pasternak, that's where he excels. Boston hasn't had continued offensive zone time the last 2 games. They haven't been dangerous. They haven't been a team you look at and go, they're threatening. They've just been, okay, well, Boston's doing this and Boston's doing that. They're not a scary club. It's in the zone, out the zone, just like that. Cause havoc, be on the forecheck, continue your aggressive style, but have a line that can have prolonged attack, find some open ice, and shoot the puck and hope it goes to the back. He had some bad luck last night. He shot a point, top of the circle, it hit his stick, it would have went top shelf. Joe Wall was not stopping it, but the block saved the Maple Leafs. That can happen. But he can be better, no doubt about it. Jim Montgomery knows that's my best player. That's my guy. I need him to be good on Saturday if we are going to win. And I think he'll come ready to play because he's a gamer. And he loves the game of hockey too. So he absolutely can prevail for the Bruins. "2013 was the Toronto meltdown. 4-1, 13 minutes left. It was the collapse, maybe the most embarrassing loss in Maple Leafs history. That was the narrative. That was the title of that game. 2018. It looked like a Maple Leafs comeback. Looked like this is the year they finally do it. But Jake DeBrusk has a big Game 7. Bruins find a way to win. 2019, Leafs are up 3-2 in the series. Lose Game 6 at home. They lose 5-2 Game 7 in the Garden. They've had a lot of Game 7s in that building. They've lost a lot of Game 7s in that building. But one difference that I felt in all of those Game 7s, that the Maple Leafs had more of the pressure than the Boston Bruins. Even though if the Bruins lose, it would have been a big deal, in particular with a 3-1 lead in a series. But Saturday night, I think it's an even pressure. And the difference now is the narrative for Saturday night, the title that will not be talked about on Sportsnet, but will be talked about here in the land of reality and truth. Saturday night is the showdown at the Garden. It is the fire off. What do I mean by the fire off? Well, if the Maple Leafs lose on Saturday, or if the Bruins lose on Saturday, their respective head coach is going to be fired. Sheldon Keefe has been dead man walking since the end of Game 4. And I'll make this point. If you're going to fire a guy in the first round, I'd fire him in the second because they're not going to beat Florida. But that's a whole other story for another day. But Sheldon Keefe, I think, knows when they lose, he's going to be fired. And if they lose on Saturday night, he will be let go by the end of next week. And they'll move in a different direction. Boston, Jim Montgomery, great story, takes over for Bruce Cassidy, has the best regular season last year in NHL history, 62 wins, 3-1 lead in the first round, and the last team to get in, the Florida Panthers, beat them in Game 7, overtime, after having a 3-1 lead. That's heartbreaking, tough. Patrice Bergeron, David Krejci's last seasons of professional hockey. But you go through the summer, you retool, you're hoping for better. You get back this year, you get second in the Atlantic Division. You have a 3-1 lead again, and all of a sudden, it's Game 7. Again, you blow it. And now the pressure's on the Bruins. The pressure's on Jim Montgomery. Two playoffs in 2 seasons as a head coach. But you can't blow 2-3-1 leads. It just can't happen. The only guy that can get away with that and keep his job is Doc Rivers. Jim Montgomery might get a head coaching job elsewhere. Might be highly regarded around the league. But I don't think Don Sweeney, Cam Neely, and that group in Boston is going to look at him and go, yeah, we're going to bring you back. We're going to bring you back after you had it on a silver platter 2 years in a row. We built you good teams, and you couldn't win that 4th game. I could be wrong, but I'll even be so bullish. The Maple Leafs won't fire Sheldon Keefe before Monday because they'll want to go through exit meetings and do all that crap that they do, meet with the media, big press conference, all that junk. If the Boston Bruins lose on Saturday night, Jim Montgomery will be fired before Monday at 12 noon. I am so confident in that. By 12 noon on Monday, Jim Montgomery will be fired if the Bruins lose on Saturday night. It is the fire-off. Both coaches are on the hot seat. They are both sitting on chairs, and there is lava below them. One chair is going to be cut with a knife, and they're going to fall into that lava and burn and get fired. The other moves on to round 2 and keeps their job for a little while longer. It is the fire-off. Not to mention, if the Bruins lose on Saturday, where does this team go? Because I've been saying this before training camp. The Bruins aren't that good. Credit to Jim Montgomery. Credit to the team for being as productive and as good as they were this season. They should have won their division, but they blew it towards the end. They aren't as good as Toronto. They aren't as good as Florida. You could make an argument Tampa Bay is in better shape than Boston moving forward. I like Swayman, but Brad Marchand's 35 years old. Pasternak's a stud. DeBrusk is entering free agency. Geeky's an okay player, I suppose. Zaka, what is he? Love McAvoy, love Carlo, but they don't have a lot of top-end talent. Their depth is questionable. I just look at them and go, what is this team? Are they a dangerous... They're moving forward. To me, they're on the downslope. The Boston Bruins have been a great franchise. Like Detroit for a long time. Like the Avalanche. But you go through and you go, okay, we're not that team anymore. And we're going to need to retool. We're going to need new faces to come to the Brad Marchand's not going to retire after this year. But maybe they could be a playoff team next year. Maybe it's one more kick at the can with a new coach if they lose on Saturday. But team to be at the top of the mountain. The luck, the good fortune for Buffalo, Ottawa has to come eventually, one would think. Detroit was a fringe playoff team this year. Maybe they can make something happen. For Toronto, if you lose, is it the last game for Mitch Marner as a member of the Toronto Maple Leafs? Is it the last game for John Tavares? Had to make decisions on guys like Samsonov, on Bertuzzi, on Max Domi. That will require money and tough decisions for the team to make. Game 7s are so unpredictable. I've made this point 1,000 times. I don't believe in game-to-game momentum. I just don't. To me, it's a narrative created by fans, but it's a stupid narrative. Because if that were true, the team that won the prior game should win every next game. You're up 3-0 in the series, you should sweep every time. It doesn't happen. Oh, we won game 4, 3-1 series. We have momentum. Why'd you lose game 5? So gaining game momentum is a myth to me. It's a theory that has no bearing and just to me is quite irrelevant. But with that being said, game 7s are unpredictable. They can go either way. If you look at history, Boston will win on Saturday because they always beat the Maple Leafs in game 7s. And that's not hyperbole, that's fact. But the Maple Leafs won game 5 and won game 6. If the Maple Leafs play the way they did last night, they play like they did in game 5, and they do that Saturday, they'll win, period. Is Austin Matthews? I don't know. I'm not even going to speculate on Matthews because he's got something. Food poisoning, knee injury, gallbladder, head contusion, knee brace, Groats. I don't know. He's got something. He's got some illness or injury that he can't push through. That's what we know. He could play on Saturday. That would be another huge boost, another huge momentum shift for the Toronto Maple Leafs. But even if he doesn't play, they just beat the Bruins twice without him, and they're playing pretty good without him, I'll add. The Bruins will come to play on Saturday because they know they don't want to be embarrassed again. The players have pride. Giving up 2 3-1 leads back-to-back years. Jim Montgomery will be coaching for his life because it's on the line, as we know. It's the fire-off. I picked the Leafs to win the series. So I picked them to win in 6 because I didn't trust them to win a Game 7. They won in 6 last year against Tampa. Because, again, if that would have went to Game 7, I don't care where it is, don't like that. But this team's playing different. You can get the Maple Leafs, I think it's plus 120 right now, FanDuel Sportsbook, just outright to win the game. I picked the Leafs to win the series. I'm going to pick them to win Saturday. The way they're attacking the boards, the way that they're approaching the game, not giving Boston space, not taking penalties, frustrating the best players on the Bruins. I think it'll be enough. I think some of the Bruins are hampered as well with injuries. They don't look as quick as they did in Game 1. The effects of just grinding on them game after game. I believe the curse will be over for the Maple Leafs and they will win Game 7 on Saturday. Finally win a Game 7 and head to Sunrise to play the Florida Panthers. But Boston could easily win. It's Game 7. Who the hell knows? But it's a huge game. The fire off. Both coaches facing getting the pink slip. Or, yeah, the pink slip. But credit to the Leafs. A couple of great games. We'll see what they can do on Saturday and see how the Boston Bruins respond. Pair of Game 6s tonight in the National Hockey League. Canucks, Predators, Stars, Golden Knights. Not much news on the Canucks front when it comes to their goaltending situation. I expect to see Sheloffs between the pipes tonight. And he's been fine. They're not losing because of him. They've been low impact games. And they need him. They need him to be good. They need him to be productive. Pettersson to show up. To have a pulse in one of these games. Tonight would be a good night to do it for Elias Pettersson. And as I'm reading this, we talked the other day about head coaches and about John Cooper potentially in Tampa, but it sounds like he's going to stay. And there's Rod Brendamore news every other day about him potentially re-signing or hitting the open market. The Penguins are another team very interesting because of Mike Sullivan, who I think is a really good coach, but Kyle Dubas, GM, Sullivan was not his hire, so he doesn't have ties to him. The Penguins are in this weird spot where they want to compete, but they also should rebuild, but Crosby's going to re-sign this summer. So it's just a weird spot. Well, the Penguins this morning fired assistant coach Todd Reirden, former head coach of the Capitals, was on the staff with Mike Sullivan. So he's been let go. And as I say that, some reporting here from, let me find it, Frank Saravelli of Daily Faceoff. There was no shortage of friction in Pittsburgh, whereas we reported Coach Mike Sullivan was vehemently opposed to making changes to his staff. Now that GM Kyle Dubas has fired assistant coach Todd Reirden, is a tipping point on Sullivan's tenure. We shall see. Coaches don't like when you fire somebody from their staff. Mike Sullivan hired Todd Reirden. It's not the GM. I learned this a couple years ago. So the coaches can normally pick at least 1-2 guys on their staff, and then the GM will hire the other person. But Reirden was a Sullivan guy on his staff last couple years, and Dubas fired Todd Reirden. Mike Sullivan's got a lot of money. I think he's got another 3 or 4 years on his deal with the Penguins. But if he gets fired, he's making that money regardless. It's a guaranteed contract. If he gets hired by another team, the team deals with Pittsburgh, they figure out a way that you're going to settle it, he'll get the money that he's owed. If he's owed $5 million a year, and I think it's in that ballpark, he'll make his money. He's a multiple-time Stanley Cup champion. So Sullivan signed a 3-year extension this last summer. Poorly pays him $5.5 million annually, begins July 1, 2024. So he has 3 years left on his deal starting this year that Pittsburgh owes him all that money. I don't think he wants to leave. I don't know if Crosby wants him to leave. They won multiple cups together. He's a good coach. He's been in Pittsburgh a long time. He's turned that organization around after a lot of years of just kind of middling. Back-to-back Cup finals, 08, 09, and then you go a long time before you win one in 2017. That was with Mike Sullivan behind the bench. But if he gets fired, I'll tell you what's interesting. Does Kyle Dubas have the balls to hire Sheldon Keefe if he got fired by the Maple Leafs? Sounds crazy. Head coach who won nothing for him in Toronto, but he knows him. They're good friends. It's his guy. If the Leafs were to lose on Saturday, would that be a fit? It screams no at every possible level. That no, this makes no sense. How could ownership say, yeah, let's bring on Sheldon Keefe? You had him in Toronto and you won jack squat. But GMs can normally get what they want. They'll be like, no, he'll work here. It's a better team, better players than I had in Toronto. You just make up something. But that's it. Just Todd Reirden fired in Pittsburgh. But interesting news today interesting news when it comes to the Pittsburgh Penguins and coaching, hirings, and everything going on. But, I mean, if I'm Mike Sullivan, I'm not mad if I get fired because I know I'm going to get another job, and I'll probably get another job with a better chance to win. Because the teams interested in Mike Sullivan are going to be teams that believe that they have a chance to win a Stanley Cup, and Pittsburgh just doesn't. Missed the playoffs back-to-back years. You can say injuries, say this and that, oh, they could have went this way. No, they're not close. If we did this yesterday, but if he got fired, I think Boston would be interested. I think Boston would inquire on Mike Sullivan. They always try to go for LA. Ottawa, new ownership, but they throw a bag at him. New Jersey, a lot of skilled young talent. Could be worse positions to go as a head coach if you're Mike Sullivan, if he gets let go by Pittsburgh. Now, whether Pittsburgh will want him to go to a team in division, that's a whole other story. But there'll be opportunities for him with better chances to win than Pittsburgh. Because, yeah, you can say I have Sidney Crosby and I have Evgeny Malkin on my team and Chris Letang and Erik Karlsson. If this was 2010, you'd be stoked. You'd be, oh, my God, we got a super team here. We're going to win Stanley Cups. I got a few more. Well, it's 2024. And they're all 35 plus. And they're all back 9 of their career. And they've missed the playoffs the last 2 years. And you have no goaltending structure whatsoever. Your third string guy became your number one guy down the stretch. Ryan Graves gets called out from Kyle Dubas for his shitty play. I mean, it's not all sunshines and rainbows in Pittsburgh as a head coach. Because you look around and go, what am I doing with this? How is this going to work? But looking at this first round, I mean, the Toronto job could be open. They'd hire him. Boston, potentially, could be open after Saturday night, the fire off. Vegas, you never know. I said this before. Yes, they won a cup last year, but at the same time, they're impatient. They believe they can win every year. They acquired Hurdle. They're going to be a different team next year because Marchessault is likely going to lead the team in free agency because they can't afford him. So all kinds of things can happen around the league if Mike Sullivan if he gets fired by the Pittsburgh Penguins and they move in a different direction. But his associate head coach, Todd Reardon, was fired this morning, and reportedly he's not happy about that. Nashville, Vancouver tonight. If I'm Vancouver and I'm Rick Tocchet, I tell my bunch before puck drop tonight in Music City, if we play 60 minutes like we want to be on the ice, we win tonight. We're more skilled than them. Our defense, top to bottom, better than them. Sure, we have a goalie. We hardly can pronounce his last name, but we played good in front of him. We give up 22 shots a night. That's nothing. We block shots. We're in good positions. But hey, Pedersen, do you want to put your gear on? Do you want to have a 60-minute? Can you have a 10-minute performance that I can say that I'm proud of? If Vancouver plays at their apex and Nashville plays at their apex, Vancouver is better, and that's empirically proven because we see where they finished in the standings. It's not a debatable thing. Oh, this is right. No, it's a proven fact that Vancouver is better than Nashville when they're both playing at their best. And if you want to debate on that, sure, we can do that. I'll be right, you'll be wrong, but we could do it. So hard to say what this player needs to step up. We know Pedersen. I know Pedersen can play better because he's one of the best players in the world. Any team, any ice surface, any planet, put him on Jupiter, he's pretty good. But he doesn't look interested in taking on contact. He doesn't look interested in going into the corner. He's not going in with a purpose. It's a lot of gliding. It's a lot of hanging out. I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to go here. Staying in a protective zone. I used to play Fortnite a little bit back in the day. I played video games in years. But I used to play Fortnite with my buddy Cole. And we both weren't very good at the game. He was better than me, but I wasn't good. But our plan was go get as much weapons as we can and hide in a bush. And if you haven't played the game, there's a circle, and the circle shrinks. You have to be inside this certain designated area. And our thing was, let's get to the middle of the circle and hide out until there's nobody left or they're battling, and we can come in, kill them with a couple shots, and win the game. And it's a winning strategy in Fortnite because we won multiple times. It's a cowardly way to play, but I'm not good at the game. And I see people building crap, and I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm just going to hang out here and kill them when they're done attacking each other. So that works for Fortnite. Hanging back, not attacking, not being is not going to work in the NHL. JT Miller, Brock Besser, if we look at this series, Vancouver should have already lost it. Should have lost game 4, outshot 34-12. Should have lost game 4, or should have lost game 3. Game 4 should have lost down 3-1 with 3 minutes left, but somehow Brock Besser with the comeback. Game 5, they do lose. They only come up with 20 shots on net for the entire game. And also game 1, they were down 2-1 in the third period. And Nashville kind of threw that away. Vancouver's been asleep. It's been horrible. No up-tempo style. They're getting beat up a little bit out there. Philip Forsberg, Swedish player, countryman with Elias Pettersson, been a hell of a lot better. More authoritative, more in the corners, making things happen. If we look at his series, and he has to do a lot for this team, because he's an important player. Forsberg's got over a point per game in this series, including 2 assists in Game 5 on 2 goals scored, which is kind of important. 5 hits, he's averaging over 20 minutes a game. Pedersen on Tuesday He had 3 shots on goal. Way to go. 2 hits. He played 20 minutes, same as Forsberg. I couldn't. If those 3 shots might as well have been invisible shots because I don't know. Pettersson's got 2 assists in 5 games, and for the over 58 crowd, he's -3 for the series. And one of those points is on the power play. So 5-on-5, he's been a fucking ghost. 8 hits, nothing. Just a garbage series. Other players have been good in the team. He hasn't. And JT Miller can be great. And Brock Besser can come up with clutch goal scoring. And they have. But Pettersson's better than both of those players. He's asked to do more. Quinn Hughes is playing really hard. He's playing through an injury to me. But he's still playing at a very high level. Zadorov's had a good series. No matter who's in net, they seem to get solid goaltending that at least keeps them in the game. Not Thatcher Demko level, but good enough to win, in particular in these style of games. You got Nashville. Nashville's a good team, but they're not great. If Vancouver can win this series, you know who's waiting for you? Edmonton. McDavid with 12 points for fun in 5 games, and he didn't even have a great series. Hyman had 7 goals. 7 goals in the first round. Vander Kane starting to wake up. Bouchard, 8 assists in the first round. I mean, come on. This team's just ready. They're getting chugging. They're ready to attack. Pettersson doesn't look like a guy Rick Tocchet would love to have play for him because he's not playing like a Rick Tocchet. Rick Tocchet, by the way, nominated for the Jack Adams this morning alongside Rick Bowness and Andrew Brunette. I'm happy Brunette got nominated because he should have. Rick Bowness, no. I think it should have been Peter Laviolette, and I think Peter Laviolette should have won the award. But I can't get everything I want. Or not everything can be right, pardon me. But it's interesting. Tonight, I don't know. I don't see Nashville losing 3 straight games at home. That crowd's going to be alive. That crowd's going to be ready to go. I think we're getting a Game 7 back in Vancouver, personally. I got the Predators winning tonight, forcing Game 7 Sunday in Vancouver. Vegas, Dallas. Vegas trying to avoid the same fate, trying to avoid losing 3 straight home games because they lost games 3 and 4. Vegas looks tired. Vegas looks a little slow. They're in the games, but Dallas just seems to be a step ahead a little bit. Mentioned Ottinger yesterday. He's been very good lately. Under 3 goals against the last 3 starts. Rock solid, knows what he's doing. I think Dallas ends it tonight. Dallas is a desperate team. They know the position they're in. They know they have the Colorado Avalanche staring at them in the face. Whoever gets Colorado, that's a very tough opponent because they probably look the best out of any team. In the first round so far, they were just dominant against the Winnipeg Jets. But Vegas can come out perform tonight. That crowd could be humming. Mark Stone, great game. Marchessault and his possible farewell game as a Golden Knight could come out and perform. But I don't feel the same mojo as they did last year. They don't have that same fervor, the same forecheck that seemed to eliminate teams when they got momentum. And I just think Dallas lost them last year. Dallas went through that experience. And Dallas is better off for it. They're another older, desperate team that knows they need to do it this year. Little Joe Pavelski, Matt Duchene, Tyler Seguin, Jamie Benn. A lot of teams, it's different. It happens every year, but a lot of teams are going to be different going into next season. Dallas will be different. Vegas will be different. Boston will be different. The Tampa Bay Lightning will be a different team. trying to improve. The Pittsburgh Penguins, we just talked about, will be a different team, even if they do keep Sidney Crosby on the roster. Every game in that series has been fun to me. I love that series. I'll be staying up for it. But I got Dallas finishing it off tonight, advancing to round 2 to face the Colorado Avalanche. I think they're a step ahead, a tad faster, and their young talent have been producing, and I think they'll continue to do that tonight in the closeout game. It sounds like the second round's going to start this weekend. Sounds like Sunday, Rangers, Hurricanes are going to play. At some point, the schedule is not out yet, but it does sound like they're going to be matching up with one another. So second round this weekend. We're going to do a podcast on Sunday recapping everything that happens over the weekend. But should be an interesting weekend in the hockey world because a lot of big results. With these results, a lot of things are going to happen. I see the Boston Bruins are not practicing today. Interesting. So we shall see what's going on in the NHL world. Don't do this often, but junior hockey, I've been keeping an eye on it last little while. Baie-Comeau has advanced to the President's Cup final. 3 rounds, 12-1. That's impressive. And they defeated Cape Breton. Cape Breton, hell of a run. They get the first pick in the draft, so they're in good shape moving forward. But Cape Breton goes to the conference final. You got Drummondville, Game 5 tonight hosting Victoriaville. Drummondville's only lost 2 games to this point. They lead 3-1. So there possibly could be a showdown, Drummondville, Baie-Comeau in the President's Cup final. Moving forward in the Ontario Hockey League, London, featuring the Maple Leafs prospect Easton Cowan, who won the OHL Player of the Year yesterday. The Knights lead Saginaw 3-1. The Knights, similar to Baie-Comeau, 11-1 so far in the postseason. Saginaw's hosting the Memorial Cup, so if they lose, they'll still be there in a month. Oshawa, they lead 3-1 over North Bay. So, again, looks like we're getting a showdown. And in the WHL closer series, Prince George destroyed Portland last night, 6-1 in Portland. So now it's a 3-2 series heading back to Prince George for Game 6. Saskatoon, Moose Jaw, 2-2 series in tight, but the Memorial Cup will be here before we know what the NHL draft will be. I believe the NHL draft lottery is next week. The NHL draft lottery. So that'll be, I think the San Jose Sharks have the best odds to get, in all likelihood, Macklin Celebrini. But the draft lottery will be next week. I think it's Tuesday night, potentially, before a game. So that's coming up shortly. Let's move to the NBA. The Knicks and the Maple Leafs have a lot of similarities. Big fan bases. People love them. And they've been through a lot of pain over the last number of years. You look at the Knicks. You trade for Carmelo Anthony. You're hoping for success. You win one playoff round the entire time that he's there. Jeremy Lin was a big story in New York. Didn't win anything. Didn't really mean anything for Jeremy Lin. But you have that then you go through years of just, is Kevin Durant going to come here? No, he goes to Brooklyn. Is LeBron James going to come to New York? No, he goes back to Cleveland instead of going to New York. To get a superstar, you bring on Jalen Brunson from the Dallas Mavericks, who is really the second banana to Luka Doncic. And you go, Jalen Brunson, good player. Maybe he's like the second, probably more likely the third best player on a really good team. But since arriving in New York, Jalen Brunson has become a superstar. And he's been just a dominant force. Last night, the Knicks eliminated the Philadelphia 76ers in Philadelphia. Jalen Brunson became the first Knick ever to have 3 40-point games in a series, had 41 in the closeout game alongside 12 assists. Joel Embiid had 39 and 13, had a good night himself. But it was a series for the Knicks where Brunson was phenomenal, but they had a lot of unsung heroes. In this Knick team, while they have one superstar, and you might look at him and go, he's not a prototypical superstar. He's not Giannis. He's not LeBron. He's not Kevin Durant. He doesn't have that size that you look at and go, okay. But he's just a dog. And they have Brunson, Josh Hart, who's just a heart and soul, Tom Thibodeau type guy, will make a big shot when you need him to, but will also grab 14 rebounds. He has 2 games in the series with over 12 rebounds, which is phenomenal. He attacks. He's just a rover. He'll defend your best player. He'll grab offensive rebounds. He is just a go-get-it type. Not to mention, he hit the dagger three-pointer that won them the game last night, that put them up 3 after a great pass from Jalen Brunson. They acquired OG Anunoby from the Raptors. Remember him? He had an okay series, but he had 19 last night with 9 rebounds. Played 45 out of the possible 48 minutes. And he just defends. He'll defend. He'll take on Tyrese Maxey. And yes, Maxey didn't have a good night. 17 points. Maxey's the best player on the 76ers. It's really not Joel Embiid anymore. But he guards the best player when he's on the floor. Hartenstein. Look at him. Big, white center, but kind of undersized when you look at Embiid, some other centers. But he plays hard. 14 and 9 with 2 assists, a couple blocks. Always will get 5 or 6 personal fouls in 30 minutes of play, but he gives you that. DiVincenzo, Villanova guy, won a national title with Brunson, with Josh Hart. 8 for 18, 23 points, 7 assists, 4 rebounds, played all 48 minutes. Because no Bogdanovich, he's hurt for the Knicks. No Julius Randle, out for the season, shoulder surgery. Not playing Shake Milton, not playing Alec Burks. The only bench guys last night were Miles McBride, who didn't have a shot, only had 3 points, and Mitchell Robinson, who had 9 rebounds. But they played their starting 5. They played them till they couldn't play them anymore, Tom Thibodeau. And they trust guys to make shots. Brunson's going to be the dude to run the offense, but they trust DiVincenzo to make a big 3 when he has to. They trust Josh Hart to make a big 3 when he has to, and he does. OG Anunoby to be available to play good defense and shoot corner 3s, which is his game. They're an incredibly fun team to watch. For me, I love watching the Knicks play. I love their style. They attack every possession. They play great defense. They compete with one another. And the Sixers, at one point, the Knicks were up 15 after the first quarter. Then, at one point in the game, the Sixers are up 14. I'm like, oh, God, it's going back to the Mecca for Game 7. Embiid's 39, 13, and 2. 13 for 13 from the free-throw line. Does have 5 turnovers. Does foul out of the game. But he's playing banged up. He's playing with Bell's palsy, with a foot injury. He's grinding out. Maxey, who was great in Game 5, 46, had 17. 6 for 18 from the floor. Didn't have a great shooting night. Tobias Harris, 0 points in 29 minutes, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. He was just a no-show for the game. He was kind of a no-show for the entire series. Makes a lot of money to not have an impact, to be his last game with the 76ers. Lowry, 0 points in 12 minutes. What kept them in it was their bench. Batum, 16 points in 27 minutes, 5 for 7 from the floor. Buddy Hield, 20 points in 21 minutes, 6 for 10 from the floor. And Cam Payne contributed with 6 points, 2 rebounds, and their bench came to play. 42 points from the Philadelphia 76ers bench. They hardly had a bench point in Game 5. At the end of the day, Embiid makes stupid decisions. He's hurt, but I also think he's just not a clutch player. Tobias Harris is he's just a guy, but he makes money like he's great, but he isn't. The Sixers shouldn't blow it up. You're not trading Embiid. You're keeping Maxey 100%. He's the future of the league. He can pull up from anywhere and make a three-pointer. He can get to the rim. Wasn't his night last night for sure, but he was great in this series. I keep Kelly Oubre, but they need a good wing. You have your center, who's injured a lot, not really reliable. You have a great point guard, so to speak, in Tyrese Maxey. But they need a wing. They need a guy that can knock down shots, be available. Not a big three type scenario, because I think that doesn't always work. Look at the Phoenix Suns, for instance. But if Maxey and Embiid are the best players on this team, could Kevin Durant be the third wheel? Could he be the third best player on the Philadelphia 76ers? Potentially. And they'd be a good group. Does he want to stay in Phoenix after being swept in the first? They're not close to winning a title, no matter what Matt Ishbia, their owner, keeps saying, oh, we're close. This is a quick, easy fix. We know how to do it. Okay, sure. Sell it. Yeah, you can pitch that to the fans and see how they respond. They're idiots if they buy it, but maybe they're buying it. I don't know. I don't think it's a horrible roster, but it's not a roster that's going to – before this year, it's not going to win a title. The James Harden trade was an absolute disaster, and you had to make it happen. But also you get Batum back and a first and a bunch of crap. Robert Covington, who didn't play in the series, that's what you get back for him. I mean – but the Knicks win a series. They're going to be favored to win their second round series as they get ready to play the Indiana Pacers. Pacers win their first playoff series in over a decade. They crushed the Bucks by 22 points last night. Talk about bench mob. For the Pacers, Obi Toppin, 21 points in 24 minutes. TJ McConnell, 20 points in 22 minutes. Their bench had over 40 points. They came to play shooting early. TJ McConnell is such a helpful hand. Creates shot opportunities, creates steals, 20 points, 9 assists in 22 minutes. And he takes charges. He's just kind of an energizer bunny for the Pacers. Nesmith shoot 50% from the field, plays really good on-ball defense. I think he's one of the best defenders in the league. Siakam, 9 for 15 from the floor, efficient, 19 points. Halliburton, not really efficient, not a great shooter, but 17 points, 6 rebounds, 10 assists. He does his thing. Nembhard, 14, 6 for 9. So again, he's efficient with his shots, the shots he gets. Halliburton can just find teammates, give them open looks, and they knock them down. That's his game. I think he should shoot less, quite frankly, because he's not a great shooter, in particular this year, because I think he's dealing with a nagging injury. But credit to the Pacers. Yes, there's no Giannis for this series, and Lillard misses 2 games, but it doesn't matter. You play the series. You won the games. I don't think Indiana will beat the Knicks because I think the Knicks are better, just top to one as a team. I think we're going to get Knicks and the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Final, which will be fun because both those fan bases are loud, obnoxious, don't like each other, but that'll be fun, however long it lasts. The more interesting here is the Bucks. Bucks this year. Fire Adrian Griffin after starting 31-15. He's gone. They bring in Doc Rivers, who was calling games for ESPN. So Doc Rivers comes in, and the team gets worse. And it's just kind of a nightmare scenario for the Bucks. Damian Lillard and Giannis, to me, never really clicked. Damian Lillard getting up there in age, didn't want to be in Milwaukee in the first place. I think they're going to trade him this offseason. But Bobby Portis, over 30. Chris Middleton, I believe, is 34. He signed for a couple more years. Chris Middleton, I'll look up his age here. Chris Middleton will be 33, 33 in August, so 33 going into next year. Not ideal. Brook Lopez is 36. Damian Lillard, 34 in July. Giannis will be 30 in December. He's still young. Bobby Portis Jr., 30. They're just an older team. Pat Connaughton, 31. It was an all-in play. It didn't work. I don't think they're close to winning. I don't know if they can fire Doc Rivers after bringing him in, saying he's this, and they gave him a multi-year deal, so they owe him a lot of money. It's just kind of a disaster in Milwaukee, just despondent upon repair. I don't see how they build a roster where they're going into next season better than the Celtics. I think the Knicks will be swinging for a fish this offseason because they're going to have a good playoff, and I think people will look at them and go, yeah, I'll go there. I'll go play with Brunson and that team. Pacers, again, they could acquire, Siakam, Pacers are a second-round team this year. So they're having success. Orlando, right for the picking, they could acquire somebody. What happened? I just look at Milwaukee and I go, you have Giannis, but he's kind of like an Embiid where he gets injured a lot in inopportune moments. He got injured before the Heat series last year, and they lost in the first round in 5. He gets injured before the first round this year. They lose in the first round in 6 games. This team is old. They're not championship material. I think you're going to see a lot of point guards go this summer. I think Donovan Mitchell will be traded from Cleveland. I think Damian Lillard's going to be traded from Milwaukee. One of them will end up in Miami. I know Damian Lillard will want it to be him. I don't think that's that great for Miami, though, because they're an older team themselves as they try to become a contender again. But a cataclysmic failure. The fact that you were the 3 seed, you lose to a 6. Guys don't show up. But Milwaukee's in rough shape here. Not in a good spot. But congratulations to Indiana. First series win in over a decade. Congratulations to the Knicks, who close out a series on the road. But ugly, ugly stuff in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, because they do love their basketball up there, and doesn't look good right now. UFC 301 this weekend in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, featuring the main event of Alejandro Pantoja defending his 125-pound flyweight title against Steve Erceg of Perth, Australia. Interesting matchup. Pantoja has been a great champion, dominated the 125-pound division, has defeated Brandon Royval twice, has defeated Brandon Moreno 3 times, has defeated Manel Kape. He's gone through the division. Amir Albazi, Kai Kara France, doesn't matter. He's beaten them all. So he goes, I don't want a rematch for the next fight. Give me somebody fresh. Steve Erceg, he hasn't been in the UFC a year yet, made his UFC debut back June of 2023. June 2023, he goes in there, short notice fight against David Dvorak, and he wins in Vancouver, British Columbia. Next fight out, he finds Alessandro Costa, who's also fighting on this card, and he gets a decision win back at UFC 295 in New York. Then he goes on a fight night against Matt Schnell, knocks him out, brutal knockout in the second round, which gave him some notoriety, and he's getting this opportunity. Only one professional loss, really good fighter. I think it's an incredibly entertaining fight because you're looking at Pantoja gets a fresh guy. Erceg's got very good boxing. Pantoja can box. He's also great jiu-jitsu, get you on the ground, can hurt you in that area as well. Pantoja's a slight favorite. He's a minus 200. You can get Erceg right now, FanDuel, at plus 154. I don't think odds makers know what to make of this fight because there's no history. Erceg's got so limited time in the octagon in the UFC. Pantoja's he's good at all facets. And I know Erceg's talked about working on his grappling, working on his jiu-jitsu in this training camp because he knows the opponent. He'll know that Pantoja will want to get him to the ground. And I think Erceg's boxing, I think it's going to be a good fight. I think this very well could go to 25 minutes. I think a couple rounds, you might just see Pantoja keep Erceg, get him to the mat, keep him there, control him. I have Alejandro Pantoja defending his championship, remaining the flyweight champion of the world in front of his home crowd in Rio, fighting for the first time in Rio, I think in over 10 years. It's been a long time since he's never fought for the UFC in Brazil. But I have Pantoja keeping his title and fending off Steve Erceg. I think it's going to be a really entertaining fight. Co-main event, Jonathan Martinez fighting the returning King of Rio, Jose Aldo Jr., the best featherweight of all time, you could argue, him and Alexander Volkanovski. Aldo has been around a long time. He's fought a lot of guys. 37 years old. You'd think he'd be older than that because last time he fought in the UFC was 2022. He fought Merab Dvalishvili. And again, now he's at bantamweight. He's not featherweight anymore. And he got beaten down pretty good. But Merab is legit. Prior to that, he beat Rob Font. He beat Pedro Munoz. Defeated Marlon Chito Vera. So he's won 3 of his last 5 fights. Jonathan Martinez is a rising contender at bantamweight, 30 years old. Last year, defeated Said Nurmagomedov, which was a really impressive win for me because Said's legit. Knocked out Adrian Yanez. Beat Cub Swanson. He's beaten Vincent Morales. He's starting to face better competition, get in there and not only win, but get some finishes. Got a TKO'd Cub Swanson. Jose Aldo is one of the best mixed martial artists of all time. He's been in there with Conor McGregor. He's been in there with Max Holloway twice. He's been in there with Merab. He's been in there with Petr Yan, a former champion. So you go through Jose Aldo. He's been in there with everybody. Marlon Moraes, Volkanovski he's fought. Moicano he's fought. Jeremy Stevens, a great fighter, he's fought. Again, Holloway twice. Frankie Edgar, who he defeated. Conor McGregor. Chad Mendes, Ricardo Lamas, the Korean Zombie. So he's got a long list of contenders and great fights. To me, you can never count out Jose Aldo. But Jonathan Martinez is the last fight on his UFC contract. He's coming back to fulfill it. He's coming back to end it the right way. I think Jonathan Martinez, just a fresher, great striking, an opponent that's dangerous. This fight for Aldo kind of reminds me of the Frankie Edgar retirement fight against Chris Gutierrez. I don't know. It would be as ugly as it was for Frankie Edgar where he got knocked out with that high knee. But I got Jonathan Martinez winning this fight, building momentum for himself, and it'll be Jose Aldo's last fight in mixed martial arts. Next up, Anthony Smith against Vitor Petrino. This line shocks me. Vitor Petrino, who is undefeated, but he's never been in the cage with somebody as good as Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith was very close to becoming the light heavyweight champion of the world when he fought John Jones. And yes, that was a minute ago. But Anthony Smith is not a scrub. He's only 35 years old. 2023, lost to Khalil Roundtree, who doesn't. And he defeated Ryan Spann, fought Johnny Walk. He's an active guy. Lionheart has been in there with some tough opponents. But he's a good striker. He knows what he's doing. Vitor Petrino didn't fight that long ago. He fought Tyson Pedro in March at that fight night that Steve Erceg fought on, oddly enough. And he defeated him via decision. Then Pedro retired. So it's kind of like, okay, well, you retired him. That's fine. I don't see him as that impressive. He doesn't finish a lot of guys. He's not that dangerous. So I trust you can get Petrino minus 650. He's the biggest favorite on this card. You can get Anthony Smith plus 400. I'm betting on Anthony Smith to win this fight. Anthony Smith's not a gatekeeper. He is a good fighter. I think he can come out there, get a big victory, get some confidence in himself. I got Anthony Smith getting back in the win column, defeating Vitor Petrino, and giving him his first professional loss. Maybe I'll be duped and Anthony Smith loses again, but I don't think so. Anthony Smith's not done yet. Michel Pereira, Ihor Pretoria. Michel Pereira, since moving up to 185, leaving 170 where he was he couldn't make 170, couldn't make the weight. Since the move, he's been an absolute rock star. 2023, October, knocks out Andre Petrovsky in a minute. Just looked great. Moved to 2024, he fights in Miami against Michael Jacek. Minute 1 second into the second, he just knocked him out, cleaned him with the both tough guys. And now he goes, you know what? I'd like to fight in Rio. I'd like to fight in Brazil, where he's from. Give me Ihor Pretoria, who fought back in February, got a victory. People viewed him as like a dangerous opponent. He's fought some good guys. I love Michel Pereira. Big favorite. I think he's going to win this fight. I think I think if he wasn't saying I want to fight in Rio, he'd be fighting a ranked opponent at middleweight, and he will his next time out because he is that good. He's a showman. He likes to make things happen. Michel Pereira gets another victory on Saturday. The last fight of the main card, another middleweight fight, Paul Craig, Cal Bohadio. This one is fascinating to me. Paul Craig, grappling, jiu-jitsu master, king of the submissions, been in there with some of the best, lost to Brendan Allen last year, defeated Andre Muniz since his move down from light heavyweight. But you look, he's beaten Jamal Hill, tapped out Jamal Hill, beaten Shogun Hua in the cage, fought Alonzo Menafield. He's defeated Magomed Ankalaev, submitting him. He's fought some good dudes, quite frankly. Now, his opponent is a confident young man who only has one professional loss, believes in his skills. He defeated Abus Magomedov last year. He submitted Jacek. So he's had some tough opponents. He's starting to get a following at middleweight, trying to become a ranked fighter. He comes in here minus 620. Better striker than Craig. He can grapple some. I think Kyle Borralho is going to win this fight, but I think it's a tougher matchup than people are giving it credit for. The odds makers giving it credit for. I think Paul Craig always makes fights difficult because of his style, because of how annoying he can be. And I'm looking forward to seeing this showdown because I think both these guys are capable of winning this fight. Both these guys have different outs on finding ways to win it. And this isn't the best card in the world, I'll admit that. But there's a lot to like. There's just fights where you'll turn on and go, that's a better fight than I thought it was going to be. And I think that's what we'll see this weekend. Joaquim Silva, Dragar Close. Sneaky good fight. Dragar Close on the rise, minus 188 favorite. I think he gets the win. Jamie Malarkey, Mauricio Ruffy. Malarkey's tough, but he got knocked out pretty bad in his last fight. I think Ruffy gets the win there. Ishmael Bonfim, Vink Pichel. Bonfim, tough loss his last time out. He'll get a victory. Alessandro Costa, Kevin Borjas. Another flyweight fight, the first fight on the card. I think we'll see Borjas come out with the victory there on Saturday. But UFC 301 should be entertaining. Should be some good fights. Jack Shore, Joe Anderson Brito, good fight. The featured prelim of the night. Els Brenner and Orlbai. That's a prelim fight. Gene Silva, William Gomez called off this morning after Gomez weighed in. It's kind of scary. 3 pounds under the featherweight limit. So you can weigh in at 146, weighed in at 143. He had to be helped on the scale, threw up just before he weighed in. So doctors called that fight off. Just a really bad weight cut for him. Cut too much weight. So we'll see. Hopefully he's okay, but that fight's off. Looks like 13 fights tomorrow night in Brazil. Between that, the Stanley Cup playoffs, we got NBA, 2 games tonight. Magic, Cavs, followed by Clippers and the Mavericks. Both could be done. You also got Nuggets, T-Wolves, Game 1 Saturday night to kick off the second round. So lots happening this weekend. Hope you guys all have a great weekend. We'll talk to you on Sunday morning. Until then, take care. This is To The Point.